Good afternoon, this is Nicholas from Gandora Gaming, and as you all know, Punks is my favorite archetype, and one of the reasons why it's my favorite archetype is because it's so splashable with so many different other strategies and packages that you can play with this deck. It's not even funny. The different versions and experimentations I've seen with this deck is absolutely absurd. I love all the little techie one cards that people play to make the deck absolutely perfection. So let's actually go over archetypes that this deck really synergizes with, and also packages and extra deck monsters and really cool main deck cards that really synergize with the punks themselves. So first things first, when we talk about archetypes that go well with punk, we gotta talk about Gold Pride, a new TCG exclusive that literally is like hand in hand, probably the best archetype to mix with the punks. Just for the simple fact, not only they add multiple layers of like rank 3s, synchro 6s, and fusions, and more interruptions to your opponent. They're just extenders. Their whole gimmick of the Gold Pride is that if your life points are lower, which the punks pay life points to do anything, they get the free special summon themselves, and then they have beneficial effects like quick synchroing, quick fusioning, searching, making bodies. It's really good. Searching trap cards that are pops. Really powerful engine, and overall probably the best package you can probably play with the punks going forward until we get a new archetype. I really do think though, once we get a third wave, this deck probably will be one of the best decks in the format. It already kind of is. It's kind of a sleeper deck right now, but I really do think Punk Gold Pride has the potential for greatness. So let's keep going. Alright, so now for the second archetype we must discuss, we gotta discuss the Therions. Now the Therions are the OG archetype that just works well with the punks. I think Punk Therion has been a very powerful deck ever since Dimension Force when the Therions came out. If you don't know, the Therions work really well with the punks, just for the simple fact there's multiple ways using Chaos Ruler in the old days in order to like dump the Therions in grave and do a whole Therion combo. It actually pushed punks being the best deck of the summer of 2022. Now, I don't think it was the best deck overall for the longest, because I think the end of summer, we got Power the Elements in like September, thus Sprite and Tier Elements came out, thus those became the best decks. But before that, I think Punk Therion was definitely either the best deck or one of the best decks of that format. Everyone was playing it, and it was just really strong in general. So right now, the Therions are still really good. Thank you for Joshua Smith and other people who came up with the combos of Mantis and Therion Sargus in order to still do the combos, which is great because you can end on multiple interruptions, either with Sargus himself, well, not Sargus, Regulus, Sargus, and ultimately Utopic Draco Future. If you're playing the Ghost Trick package, we'll talk about in a second. But you can also end on like what's it called, the Bouncing Guy in Foom. Also the trap card that's a banish or negate. There's a lot of multiple things that the Therions do that are really amazing. And the only reason why I'm currently not playing them is just due to the fact that they are bricky. The biggest issue with the Therions is that they do not do anything by themselves. They need Therions or other archetypes in grave in order to summon themselves. So if you're not playing a dedicated machine deck, you can't summon Regulus. If you're not playing a plant deck, you can't summon Mantis, etc. You're not playing Aquas, you can't summon out Foom. Same thing goes there. So that's really the biggest issues with the deck. It's just that they're bricky, and especially when Droll's running around, it's just not smart playing the Therions at this time. But if we get a new play enabler for the Therions, or a new generic card like Mantis that makes the combos a lot more easier to do, like a new Chaos Ruler like card, I could just dump cards in the grave in order for us to combo off again, I can definitely see Punk Therions being a very powerful deck in the future. But for right now, I think it's a really solid engine that I can definitely play with punks, but I wouldn't recommend it right now in this format. So for the next archetype I do want to discuss, besides the Therions, would definitely have to be one of my all-time favorite archetypes, Virtual World. Virtual Punk is a very interesting deck. So if you don't know, the Virtual Worlds have a lot of synergies with the punks. They're both synchro-based archetypes that revolve around synchro 6s and synchros rank 3s. Also synchro 9s. It's just a very, very synergistic deck. They're psychic, so the Mercy Teleport works well with them. Same thing with the punks as well. There's just a lot of really good things going with the the ultimate virtual worlds themselves. Plus, they don't really need your normal summon. As long as you can activate the virtual world guys from hand, they just summon themselves from hand. Thus, you can use your normal summon like Xiamen, or just pitch cards with Foxy Tune to summon out stuff. It's a very, very comprehensive engine that you can definitely play together. Not to mention, Shenshin's still a very, very powerful synchro, even though we're in Kashtira format. And that trap card that can just pop cards on field is still a really, really powerful card. My biggest issue right now with playing the virtual engine is just because it's just a little outdated. The virtual world cards are still really, really solid, but the biggest issue with virtual world, which the punks don't really fix, is brickability. The deck does brick. Virtual worlds by themselves brick. So, same thing with the Therions. High ceiling, but you gotta play a cost, and that cost is bricking, so it's up to you if you want to play it. Alright, so now it's time to talk about some other amazing archetypes, and let's talk about it. So after Virtual World, I gotta discuss the archetype that I'm currently playing with my Gold Pride Punk deck, which is Dynamorphia. Now, Dynamorphia is actually an insane engine that you can play in the deck as a very, very powerful archetype. So, if you don't know, Dynamorphia's whole gimmick is that you pay half your life points in order to fusion summon basically a skill drain-like monster that completely locks your opponent out of the game. And that's basically the whole game plan. We do so much drawing from the field spell for the punks, and we just have so much ability to get cards into our hand. Like, we literally draw 3 a turn. And that's not mentioned, we search like 20 cards a turn. I mean, we fit out our deck very, very much so. So we have a high possibility of drawing one of our 9 Dynamorphia cards. And Dynamorphia is just a very, very splashable engine. All it takes is literally 1 Phreesia or 1 Frenzy, and you are off to the races. Even Trap Trick does it. Basically, you just fuse summon on your opponent's turn, summon out a skill drain, and then lock your opponent from activating monster effects, thus you win the game. And if you're worried about like pushing for damage, no worries, because this big monster is a level 8, meaning any level 3 plus the 8 Rexstrom equals Psychic and Punisher, and you can push for 10,000 damage with 1 Synchro monster. It's a very, very powerful, powerful engine, and I highly recommend if you want to try something unorthodox with your punk strategies, I highly recommend playing the Dynamorphias. They're a very, very solid archetype, and I just did a deck profile on it on my YouTube channel, so go check it out. The next archetype I do want to discuss is an archetype I did a video on a couple of weeks ago, and actually last week, Goatee. Goatee actually has weird synergies with the deck, and the reason why is because the second wave of support that we got for the Goatee monsters, and Hypernova, and Darkwing Blast is a Synchro 6 that's generic. And the reason why that's important is because the punks and Gold Pride specialize in making Synchro 6s and rank 3s. Also, Synchro 8s as well. So there's actually an argument to play a small Goatee package in punks. And now, I'll explain it basically how it works. You play 1 copy of Shift in the main deck, and that's literally all you play in the main deck for the Goatee. Alright, so I'm going to explain the basic combo for the Goatee. So any 2, a level 3 and a level 3 equals a Synchro 6. And basically any punk level 3 tuner or Leon plus Captain Carry or any generic 3 that we're playing basically equals the Synchro 6 into, of course, our Synchro 6 Goatee. The Synchro 6 Goatee can banish Shift the Goatee from our deck, thus allowing us to have access to a quick Synchro 8 on our opponent's turn, which is pretty insane. So if you don't know, Shift, when banished, summons itself during the standby phase of every next turn. So basically, you banish it on your turn, next standby phase, it'll come back onto the field. It's a quick synchro into any fish synchro monster. Now, there is technically 3 targets that we can make. There's more than that, but there's only 3 good ones. 2 level 8s and a level 10. I'll discuss the 2 level 8s first. So luckily the two level 8s are actually really solid. First, we have Ascalon. Ascalon is the goatee monster that we play. Basically, it's on Synchro Summon. It banishes a card you control, banishes himself, and a card your opponent controls. So basically, it's a quick effect banish, which is pretty amazing. Especially if you're going against some really annoying decks like Sprite, because they need bodies on field in order to keep summoning level 2s from hand. So if you banish their guys on field, they can't do their combos, which is pretty solid. And Ascalon has effect when he banishes himself. Basically, you can banish a fish from grave, reborn him from the banish zone, which is actually important because that means you banish the paces, leave you a free, not paces, my bad, shift, thus allowing you to have a free Synchro 10 on your turn, either making the big guy, which we'll go over in a second, or Baron de Fleur, which is absolutely kind of insane. So you get from a quick effect banish on your opponent's turn to turn 3 making the Baron and just pushing for a game, which is pretty solid. Won a couple games with that, and I highly recommend the engine. The other target, as for Synchro 8 fishes you can make, is White Aura Whale. Now, White Aura Whale on Synchro Summon destroys all monsters your opponent controls. I believe all attack position monsters. I could be mistaken. I gotta double read White Aura Whale. The reason why we're not playing him as much is because he is a win effect, meaning he does miss timing. So if you do it on the wrong way, he will miss timing and he will not nuke a single card. So you have to choose your own adventure. You get a quick effect banish, or you get a quick effect board wipe, which is pretty solid. Same thing goes. You can just banish the shift from grave. And the reason why we're playing shift out of all of them is just because it has a simple effect. You can banish it from grave to give a fish 500 attack, which matters because it can always get itself out of the graveyard. Paces can't get itself out of the grave, and neither can the other one. So that's why we're playing shift, because shift can banish itself from grave by giving a fish 500 attack. And we're playing a couple of fish because punks have a fish fusion monster in the form of our amazing carp, which is pretty interesting. So there's some weird synergies the deck already has. Now, for the final synchro we can make with the goatees, besides Baron on our turn, is actually a very powerful one in goateeing the Deep Beyond. So you can actually Hail Mary your opponent and banish all cards on a field as a quick effect nuke. All you need is a level 8 plus the shift on field, which is very easy to do because we are a Synchro 8 deck machine. Punks can make Synchro 8s and Summon 8s very easily. So the access to goatee from the Deep Beyond is absolutely easy to do. And what you can do is literally just make a Synchro 8, summon out the shift on your opponent's turn, and you're going to say you're going to get the back row deck. Just let them set 5, Synchro into the Deep Beyond, banish all their back row, and go for game. Very powerful engine, and I highly recommend it. I really do think the goatees have a home, especially once they get a third wave of support. Same thing with the gold prides. Alright, so let's talk about the final archetype that absolutely we must discuss. That would be the new Earthbound Immortals support. Earthbound Immortals got amazing support in the form of synchros and fusion monsters. These fusion monsters not only have the ability to nuke your opponent's field, but also do other things. It's really amazing support that these Earthbound Immortals got. It's basically a new archetype. I know it's Earthbound Immortal as supposed to support that archetype, but they play so contradictory to the other archetypes that support Earthbound Immortal that it's basically a whole new deck. And funny enough, their two new synchros that they got are synchros 6s and 8s. We can make those really easy in our deck, and lo and behold, one of those synchros fusion summons by banishing a material. Thus, we have access to fusions on our opponent's turn and on our turn to help us push for a very powerful play. So I highly recommend, once this set comes out, looking into the new Earthbound Immortal support. Alright, so you just all gonna have to wait for part 2, where I discuss the individual cards in the main and extra deck that really synergize with the punks. We'll see how this video goes. Until then, I hope you all enjoy. I hope you guys enjoy part 1, where I discuss the archetypes that synergize with punk going forward. If I left any of the archetypes out, let me know in the comments. I know base is an archetype. It's not really an archetype, but it's a deck that I kind of left out because it's just a hodgepodge of decks. But Honestly, punks are always a hodgepodge deck, so honestly, all decks are based, so we'll just have to see how that goes. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Don't do anything stupid, and expect a part 2 on the actual like tech cards that aren't like archetype specific that you can play in this deck going forward to help you win duels and play some really, really cheeky and shenanigans on your opponent's stuff. So until next time, hope you all enjoy. Don't do anything stupid. See you all next one. Bye bye.